Hello, grandparents. Today we're going to talk about telling your love story to future generations. Now, this is important, and there are so many ways to capture family stories now that we just really don't have any excuses for not getting as much information onto future generations as we can. And before I go through the structure that I want to give you, I want you to think about you could record this on video. You could write it down, type it up and, print out pages and give to family members. Or even today, it's so easy to self-publish. You could do a book and put in some pictures and make that a family gift one year at Christmas or something. There just are a lot of ways to record your story and get it to your family, to the people who care about the life that you have led and are living now. So think about how you want to tell your story, and I would suggest that you use classic story structure. And we don't think about this most of the time when we start to write or do a story, but if you study story at all, the very first thing you learn is to be a good story that resonates in the human mind with storytelling, it has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And there are certain things that happen in each of those pieces of the story. So if you're thinking about your love story and you're thinking about the beginning, then of course you need to put in how you discovered each other. How did you meet? And then add to it, what was the fun of the situation? Or was it a crazy, you met by having a car accident or something crazy like that, something that you thought was bad and it turned out to be good? What was the miraculous and the dramatic about how you met and fell in love? So capture those things in the beginning of your story. And then the middle of a story, and if you take writing classes, often teachers will refer to this as the muddle in the middle. Well, think about life. There are a lot of years that kind of pass by and it feels mundane. It feels like, okay, well, we're just doing the daily grind. We're, getting the kids ready for school. We're heading out. There's the chaos of that. There's the school day, rush home from work, or pick up kids and rush home from work. Get dinner on the table, make sure everybody's bathed and in bed on time so you can get up the next day and do it all over again. That's kind of the muddle in the middle. But the mundane has some purposes. In those middle years of our lives where we're raising children, our career is sorting itself out, there are lessons that are being learned. There are conflicts that we're learning how to resolve. We're building our relationship skills among family members. Try and think through that middle part of your life and capture those things, and particularly pay attention to the events, your reactions to them, both positive and negative. Sometimes I think when we want to write our story, we only want to tell the good part. Well, the real life lessons, the character building experiences, all those things happen in the difficult times. So it's important to include that. That's the conflict that makes your story interesting to somebody who's reading it. If everything is roses and rainbows, it's usually not all that interesting. The human mind, the human heart wants to see the conflict, the struggle, and the resolution of that conflict. So don't forget to include those things in your love story. Talk about the lessons learned from the events that you experienced, how you grew through those mundane years, the people that you met. Over the course of our lifetime, we meet so many people. Some just come and go through life. They don't really have a huge impact. Others may come and go quickly, but they do have a huge impact. Think back to the mentors that you've had. Whether they're teachers, pastors, friends, someone who mentored you and helped you, and what lessons you learned from them. And the family additions. I should have started right there because certainly in the middle years, our families are growing. We are having children. We are As our children grow up, they marry, so we add in-laws to the family and the whole dynamic there. Capture those things on paper. Try and rebuild that timeline in the part of the middle where you're telling your story. And then finally, the end of life. Now, if you're watching this video, you haven't fully reached the end, but I want you to be thinking about this final 20 or 30% of our lives where we're grandparenting or becoming great-grandparents. In this time in storytelling, usually there's some sort of resolution to major problems. There's trials that really set our character in stone. There's commitments that are made to certain ways of life. So think through those ideas and how you're living at present. Have you, for example, been a career person and you're now really discovering the value of family, and what are you going to do between now and when you pass away to either restore relationships, rekindle them, or make them even better than they already are. So really think about how you want to end your life. What do you do now to make it the best it possibly can be? How has maturity affected the relationships among your family members? How are you facing your own mortality? It is just a reality that the older we get, the more we start thinking in terms of, my life expectancy is this and I'm getting closer to it. And how do I handle that emotionally, physically, spiritually? How do I prep my family for the time when I'm not here anymore? What are your wishes for your legacy for the future generations? At the end of the story, this is where you really capture a lot of that. You've gone through life and you've matured to the point where you can really put some concrete thought into the legacy that your life is making. And then even what is your ideal ending? I know I have thoughts about how, when I take my last breath, I don't want to be in conflict with anyone if possible. So I think about those things on a day-to-day basis, and I try not to end days with, arguments or distance between myself and the people that I love. So the beginning, the middle, and end of your love story. Think about writing it or filming it, telling that story in those terms, and use the classic storytelling techniques that have worked for novelists for generations. Outline your story. I'm challenging you to that, to at least outline it. And then later on this month, we'll talk a little bit about telling your love story with some of the family mementos and keepsakes that you have. Take care, friends, and be grand.